The vast citadel of Tlarek shimmered under twin suns, its crystalline spires humming softly with energy. Visitors from every corner of the known galaxy gathered here, each species bringing its own unique culture and mysteries to the bustling heart of the Veil Confederation. Among them walked Lysara, a scholar of beauty and myths, her delicate features cloaked in shimmering blue veils that matched her iridescent skin. Her species, the Zanari, were revered for their ethereal grace and intellectual pursuits. For as long as Lysara could remember, tales of humans had circulated among the stars, a primitive race from a backwater planet, capable of unimaginable savagery and courage. To her, the stories were absurd embellishments at best, outright fiction at worst. No species could embody the contradictions described, brutal yet compassionate, fragile yet indomitable. One story in particular intrigued her, that of the human warrior, said to possess a primal beauty born of struggle and an unyielding will. It was a story she dismissed as myth but found herself returning to in quiet moments. On a whim, Lysara visited a small archive deep within the citadel. The keeper, an aged Rovan with spindly limbs and a perpetually amused expression, greeted her warmly. "Seeking another tale for your collection, Lysara?" he asked, his voice like the rustle of dry leaves. She hesitated. "I've heard the whispers again. Of a human warrior. Do you have any records?" The Rovan chuckled, his large eyes narrowing. "Humans, you say? You're not the first to ask. They are a popular myth." But, he shuffled to a dusty shelf, retrieving a small holographic cube. This was recorded in the aftermath of the Battle of Yexus Prime. "It might interest you." The projection that emerged from the cube was grainy and chaotic, a battlefield scorched and littered with broken machinery. In the center of the chaos stood a lone figure, clad in battered armor. A human, if the myths were true. His face was smeared with dirt and blood, his expression fierce yet serene. He moved with a fluid grace, dispatching foes twice his size with startling efficiency. Lysara's breath caught. The image was unlike anything she had expected. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The Rovan shrugged. "A survivor, they say. Few believed he was human until they saw him fight." Curiosity burned within her. Was it possible the tales were true? Weeks later, Lysara found herself aboard a star cruiser bound for the outer reaches, where rumors of human mercenaries persisted. The journey was perilous, taking her through uncharted regions of space where Confederate laws held little sway. Her destination was a desolate moon called Karath. There, in a dilapidated outpost, she finally met one. He was seated in a corner, his armor discarded in favor of simple, utilitarian clothes. His frame was powerful yet compact, his movements restrained but deliberate, as though every gesture had a purpose. His face bore the scars of countless battles, yet his eyes, those impossibly vibrant eyes, held an intelligence and depth that startled her. Lysara approached cautiously. "Are you a human?" The man looked up, his gaze piercing yet calm. "I am. And you are far from home, Zanari." His voice was unlike any she had heard, rough yet melodious, carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much and survived it all. "I am Lysara," she said, her veils fluttering slightly as she inclined her head. "I've come to learn about your kind." He leaned back, studying her. "Most come to hire or kill us. Why are you different?" She hesitated. "Because I thought you were a myth." The man laughed, a sound that was surprisingly warm. "We're very real, though some of us wish we weren't." Over the days that followed, Lysara learned his name, Darien, and his story. He was a soldier, once part of Earth's now dispersed military forces, cast adrift in the galaxy after humanity's failed bid for independence from the Confederation. "Why do you fight?" she asked one evening as they watched the setting suns. "For survival. For honor, sometimes. And because it's all I know," he admitted. Lysara found herself drawn to him, not just for his strength but for the complexity beneath it. He was a living paradox, fierce yet gentle, weary yet unbroken. But their fragile connection was soon tested. Karath came under attack from a marauding faction, and Darien was called to lead the defense. Lysara, unaccustomed to violence, was thrust into the chaos of war, witnessing firsthand the raw power and resilience that made humans legendary. Darien fought like a force of nature, his movements a deadly ballet of precision and fury. For the first time, Lysara understood why humans were both feared and revered. Yet it was his compassion that struck her most deeply, how he shielded the weak, how he mourned the fallen. When the battle ended, Lysara approached him, her heart heavy. "You're not a myth," she said softly. "You're more." Darien smiled faintly, his expression tired but kind. "And you've seen the truth. What will you do with it?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I think the galaxy needs to understand what you truly are." He chuckled, shaking his head. "The galaxy doesn't care for truth. But if you do, maybe that's enough." As the twin suns rose over Karath, Lysara knew her journey was far from over. The myth of the human warrior had been shattered, but in its place, she had discovered something infinitely more profound, a truth that would forever change her view of the universe and her place within it. And perhaps, just perhaps, it would change the galaxy as well. Lysara remained on Karath for weeks after the battle. The outpost was in shambles, its meager defenses barely holding against the marauders. Darien and his ragtag group of survivors worked tirelessly to repair the damage, patching up their defenses while tending to the wounded. Lysara, unused to the grim realities of war, found herself thrust into the heart of it. Her delicate hands, accustomed to handling ancient manuscripts, now aided in cleaning wounds and comforting the dying. The sights and smells were overwhelming, but she forced herself to endure. It was during these moments, watching Darien, that she began to see the deeper truth of human resilience. He never faltered, never wavered, even when exhaustion painted dark shadows under his eyes and his injuries left him limping. His determination was infectious, and those around him rallied under his command. One evening, as they sat around a dim fire, Lysara broke the silence. "Do you ever tire of it? The fighting, the killing?" Darien glanced at her, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. "Every day," he said quietly. "But stopping isn't an option. Not when others depend on you." His words lingered with her long after the fire died out. The marauders returned 3 days later, this time with reinforcements. Their ships descended on Karath like locusts, blotting out the pale sky. Alarms blared, and the outpost scrambled to mount a defense. Darien stood at the center of the chaos, issuing orders with calm authority. Lysara found herself swept along, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been in a situation so dire, so visceral. "Stay in the bunker," Darien ordered her as the first wave of attackers breached the perimeter. "No," she said, surprising herself. "I can't just hide." He stared at her for a long moment before nodding. "Then stay close to me." The battle was unlike anything she had ever imagined. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. Explosions lit up the horizon, casting eerie shadows over the desolate landscape. Lysara followed Darien through the chaos, her mind reeling at the sheer brutality of it all. Despite the odds, Darien fought with an almost supernatural intensity. His every movement was calculated, his every strike precise. He moved like a predator, his instincts honed to perfection. Lysara could see why the galaxy had spun legends around his kind. Humans weren't just warriors, they were survivors, forged in the crucible of their harsh, war-torn history. By the time the battle ended, the outpost was barely standing. The marauders had been driven off, but at a heavy cost. The ground was littered with the fallen, and the survivors were battered and broken. Lysara found Darien slumped against a wall, his armor scorched and dented. Blood seeped from a gash on his shoulder, but he waved off her concern. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice was hoarse with pain. "You're not," she said firmly, kneeling beside him. "Let me help." As she cleaned his wound, she couldn't help but marvel at his resilience. "Why do you keep doing this? Fighting battles that aren't yours to fight?" Darien's lips quirked in a faint smile. "Because someone has to. If not me, then who?" His answer struck her deeply. It wasn't just about survival, it was about purpose, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. For all their flaws, humans had an innate drive to rise above their circumstances, to push forward no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed, Lysara and Darien grew closer. She found herself drawn not just to his strength, but to the man beneath the warrior's exterior. He was fiercely intelligent, with a dry sense of humor that often caught her off guard. Despite everything he had endured, he still held onto a spark of hope, a belief that things could be better. One evening, as they watched the stars from a makeshift balcony, Lysara spoke the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Do you ever think about returning to Earth?" Darian was silent for a long moment. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But Earth's gone. Not in the physical sense, but the Earth I knew, the one I fought for, doesn't exist anymore. The Confederation saw to that." Lysara reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "Then make a new home," she said softly. "You don't have to be a nomad forever." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Maybe," he said after a long pause. "But it's not that simple." Their bond deepened over time, and Lysara began to see the galaxy through his eyes. It was a harsh, unforgiving place, but it was also full of potential. Together, they began to rebuild the outpost, forging alliances with neighboring settlements and recruiting new defenders. For the first time in a long while, Lysara felt a sense of purpose. She wasn't just an observer anymore, she was part of something bigger, something worth fighting for. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, she realized that the myths she had chased had led her to a truth far greater than she had ever imagined. Humans weren't just warriors or survivors, they were dreamers, builders, and creators. And in Darian, she had found a kindred spirit, someone who embodied the best of what humanity could be. Together, they faced the challenges of the galaxy, carving out a place for themselves in the vast, uncaring void. And though the path ahead was uncertain, Lysara knew one thing for sure. The myths had been wrong. Humans weren't gods or demons. They were something far more extraordinary. They were real. Months passed, and the battered outpost of Karath began to transform. What had once been a broken, desolate place now thrived with life and purpose. The settlers, inspired by Darian's unyielding determination and Lysara's vision, worked tirelessly to fortify their home. What started as a mere outpost was becoming a sanctuary, a beacon of hope in the chaotic outer reaches. Lysara found herself more deeply entrenched in this new life than she had ever expected. Her scholarly pursuits took on a new meaning as she chronicled the stories of those who came to Karath, weaving their tales into a larger tapestry of resilience and renewal. She worked side by side with Darian, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, Darian broke the silence. "You've changed this place, Lysara." She turned to him, her translucent veils catching the light of the setting suns. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled faintly, his eyes softening. "Maybe. But you're the reason it feels like home." The word struck her, resonating deeply. Home. It wasn't something she had thought possible in such a harsh corner of the galaxy. But as she looked out at the lights flickering across the settlement, she realized it was true. This place, these people, and Darian, they were her home now. "Do you think it will last?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Darian's gaze followed hers to the bustling settlement below. "If we fight for it, yes. But it's not just about survival anymore. It's about building something worth protecting." Lysara smiled, her heart swelling with a mix of hope and determination. "Then we'll build it together." Their efforts bore fruit. Word of Karatha's transformation spread, and more settlers arrived, seeking refuge and a chance to start anew. Some came with skills, others with stories, and all brought a shared desire to create a better future. Slowly but surely, Karath grew into a thriving hub of cooperation and trade. Darian and Lysara became its unofficial leaders, their partnership a testament to the strength of unity across species. Lysara's wisdom and diplomacy complemented Darian's strength and strategic mind, and together, they forged alliances that ensured the settlement's stability. One day, as they walked through the bustling market square, Darian paused. "Lysara," he began, his tone uncharacteristically hesitant. She turned to him, her head tilting slightly in curiosity. "Yes." He took a deep breath. "I never thought I'd find a place like this. Or someone like you." Her cheeks flushed a soft violet, the Zanari equivalent of a blush. "You make it sound as though I'm the extraordinary one. But I've seen you, Darian. The way you fight, the way you care for these people. You've made me believe in the impossible." He smiled, his hand brushing against hers. "Then maybe it's time to believe in one more thing." Before she could ask what he meant, He dropped to one knee, producing a small, intricately crafted ring made of salvaged metal and polished stone. It was simple, yet beautiful, much like the man offering it. "Lysara," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I know this isn't the life you imagined, but it's the life I want, with you. Will you stay here with me? Not as a scholar or a visitor, but as my partner. My home." Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment, she was speechless. Then she knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers. "Darian," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "you've shown me a world I never knew existed. I would be honored to call it my home, and you my partner." The market erupted in cheers as the crowd, who had gathered unnoticed, broke into applause. Darian and Lysara laughed, their faces glowing with joy as the people celebrated their union. Under the twin suns of Karath, they built a life together. Their love became a symbol of what was possible when barriers were broken, and myths were replaced with understanding. Lysara, who had once sought to prove humanity's existence, now lived as part of their legacy. And Darian, who had long wandered the galaxy as a lone warrior, finally found a reason to put down roots. In the harsh and unforgiving expanse of the outer reaches, a sanctuary thrived, a place where myths gave way to truth, and love flourished amidst the stars. And for the first time in both their lives, they were truly, undeniably happy.